In this video, I want to talk about one of my absolute favorite techniques, one that's kind of not necessarily been forgotten, but it's just one that a lot of guys don't always pick up as much anymore, and that is the good old buzzbait. A buzzbait is a big fish catching bait. You can also catch numbers. I remember hearing Denny Brower talk about this bait a long time ago. He said that it is the jig of topwater baits, meaning that if you throw it enough throughout a day, you're gonna get a couple of big bites on it. So it's one that we should all learn to fish. Now, with that being said, I have 5 little tips when it comes to buzzbait fishing that I think really can help you to catch more fish. And so let's go ahead and dive on in. Now, before we get into it, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. Right now for the month of September, I am running a package deal. You can actually get a USA made sun shirt like the one that I'm wearing. I have a number of different colors, solid colors, and a pair of sun gloves for 60 bucks. So it's a package deal. It's really easy. All you got to do is add the sun shirt that you like to cart, add the pair of gloves that you like to cart, and it will automatically discount at checkout. As I say, shopping at Fin Fishing is truly the best way to help support this channel, and that is 100% true. I greatly appreciate all of you guys who have done so. All right, let's talk about the buzzbait. Man, I love this. I love this technique, and we're just getting ready to get into fall, and during the fall is one of my favorite times to fish a buzzbait. I have caught some of the biggest bass that I've caught all year long during the fall on a buzzbait. But with that being said, it's a good bait year round. Now, let's go ahead, not with that being said, don't want to say that. Let's go ahead. I wrote down 5 things here that I really like about this bait that I think can help you to catch them. The first thing, speed. Speed is a big component to a buzzbait, something that you don't always hear anglers talk about. And I've kind of seen it on both ends of the spectrum, where some days out there you need a bait going really fast, and some days out there you need it going really slow. Now, for those of you who have been around Bass Fishing HQ and even this channel, a buzzbait in my mind is the best bait, the best topwater to catch cold water bass. Like, I have caught buzzbait bass in 47-degree water before, and it's usually an afternoon deal when you do catch them in that cold of water. But when you catch them, you need to be creeping that thing so slow in cold water, so slow. I mean, just barely enough to turn that thing, barely enough to keep it on the surface of the water. And so speed in that situation is a huge component. You will not get bit in colder water reeling this thing really fast. Now, on the flip side of things, we're here in the summer, we're fishing it in the fall. Speed and actually fishing this very fast can sometimes be the difference between catching a few fish and catching a lot of fish, because what you have to do so often in the summer is create reaction strikes. You have to make the fish eat your bait. And sometimes casting this thing and just burning it across their face, they just have to make a commitment. They either have to sit where they're gonna sit, or they're gonna bite that thing, you know, or they have to just figure it out. So sometimes in the summer, I have found that speed, reeling this thing really, really fast, can be a deadly way at catching some big, big fish. So always just pay attention to your speed, and especially the speed at which you caught a bass. If you've ever, this is kind of a little tip here. If you're ever fishing this bait and say you kind of fish it through the area, and then all of a sudden you speed it up to get it in the boat to make a cast, and you have a fish bust it right there, that's a good little like hint to you from the fish that you need to speed up your retrieve. So always remember that. All right, let's talk about the next thing, which is popping your buzzbait. I know that sounds weird when we think about a buzzbait, we're not thinking about popping it. But what I mean by that is that every time that I am using a buzzbait, whether in cold water or warm water, no matter what speed, usually at some point during the retrieve, I will either kind of just pop my rod like that during the retrieve as I'm still reeling it, you know, so it's like I'm reeling it, pop, reeling it, pop, or I'll do it with I actually do it with my reel handle at times, where I'm reeling it and I just real quick. That little popping motion, if you watch it, you will have that buzzbait coming at kind of a consistent motion. Then all of a sudden, it makes this sound, it shoots forward, it spits water. That can be a huge triggering mechanism for a bass, because a lot of times when I'm fishing a buzzbait, I'm fishing it in dirtier water, I can't always see the bass. There might be a bass that's following this thing for 10, 15, 20 feet, and then all of a sudden you kind of either hit your reel handle or you pop that rod, and it's a triggering mechanism. All of a sudden it will force a fish to bite that bait. And I have seen this so many times out there on the water. Like, I feel like it's almost half the time that I go. And I see so many anglers that get in my boat or that I fish with who, when they throw a buzzbait style bait, they're casting out, they're reeling it in at a consistent pace. And so just really quick tip, every time now and then, pop your rod or hit your reel handle a little faster. I'm telling you, it will make a big difference on the number of bites that you get. All right, the next thing that you should know, keep your lure color simple. Buzzbaits are one of the more simple when it comes to colors of anything that I select. Okay, so I throw a buzzbait like this most of the time, where I am threading on a Zoom horny toad. There are 3 Zoom horny toads that I'm going to use: black, white, and green pumpkin. That's it. That's all. I don't use anything else, period. Black, white, and green pumpkin. And I really believe that the color of the toad is more important than the color of your blade. I'll talk about the color of your blade in a moment. I use a black toad anytime I'm fishing in muddy water, highly stained water, or if I'm fishing really early in the morning or really late in the evening where you have those low light conditions, or if it's cloudy out. So anytime you have dark situations, black is my go-to, or if I'm fishing in really muddy water. That's just what I always do, and I feel great about it. It's what I always do. I feel great about it. If I know that the bass are feeding heavily on threadfin shad, gizzard shad, that is when I'm going to pick up the white. So during a shad spawn, I don't care what the color of the water is. I don't care what time of day it is. I am going to use white because the bass are feeding heavily on those shad. They're going to want white. It's just a match a hatch type of deal in that situation. If I am fishing around bass that I know are eating bluegill, a lot of times, like this happens in clear water in the summer, I'm going to use a green pumpkin. You could probably use a watermelon. I just like green pumpkin. Everyone likes green pumpkin. Now, let's talk about the color of the blade. I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I do not think the color of the blade matters like 80% of the time. I really do not. Especially if you're fishing in muddy water or highly stained water, which I do a lot with a buzzbait. I really don't think that it matters in that situation. To me, in that situation, the blade is just an attractant. It creates all that noise, and that's just what attracts the bass, and then they go up there and try to find it. Now, if I am fishing in really clear water and I notice that bass are missing my buzzbait, that is when I will mess around a little bit with the blade color. And I don't think that there's an exact science to this. I mean, if I'm using a white buzzbait to mimic shad, I usually go with kind of a silver blade. If I am fishing around bluegill, sometimes I like a gold blade. I don't think there's an exact science to it. The big thing is if fish are missing it, that is usually when I experiment with it. But in muddy, in stained water, it doesn't matter to me. I'll put a gold on, I'll put a clear on, I'll put a silver on, I'll put a black on. I just do not think it matters. So be very simple when it comes to your color selection, because I don't think it matters most of the time with a buzzbait. All right, let's go on to the next thing, which is equipment. I think the equipment for my buzzbait has changed a little bit over the last couple of years, and I feel like I've really got it dialed in now. I like to use 30-pound braided line with my buzzbaits. I used to use 20-pound straight fluorocarbon, and that actually worked really well for me. And some of you might be like, well, it's a top water, you shouldn't use fluorocarbon. It doesn't matter with the buzzbait because you are casting that buzzbait out. Usually you got your rod about like about like this, and you are just reeling it. A fluorocarbon line that sinks is not going to make a difference at all on the buzzbait. And I actually did really well with that combination. I'm not against it by any means. I just like braid a touch better. Now, with that being said, I like a fast action rod if I'm using the fluorocarbon. with a straight braid, I like a rod that is kind of more of like a moderate fast. I talk about it all the time. If you're using straight braid, you still gotta have a little bit of give. Now, this particular rod right here is the ARC Tharp Series Buzz Burner rod. It's literally made for a buzzbait. To me, it is the perfect rod for a buzzbait. Like, it's also only a $99 rod. So as far as rods go, it's fairly inexpensive. I really, really like this rod. It's actually a really cool color on it. So 30-pound braid, buzz burner rod, and usually a 7.1-to-1 gear ratio reel, something in the 7s. I don't like to have it in the 8s because I think it's a little too fast because, like I said, sometimes I like to creep a buzzbait, but I also don't want it to be too slow where I'm like having to do this all the time. So anything in the 7s is really good. All right, last thing that I want to talk about with a buzzbait is that sometimes no matter what you do with your equipment, no matter if you pop your rod, no matter the speed of your rod, no matter what you are doing, you will have fish come up and just hit this bait and miss it. Even when you're using a trailer hook. It's just like bass get into this weird mood at times. I see it really in the middle of summer a lot when you're fishing around highly pressured bass. If they are doing that, there's two things that I will try to do. One, always keep a follow-up bait like a Yamamoto Senko with you. Cast that Senko wacky rig right on that fish after it blows up on the bait and misses it. See if you can't catch that fish. Also, if I continue to have fish miss a buzzbait, a lot of times I switch over to a plopper. And a lot of times I will switch over to the 90 size plopper because that is like, that plopper size is the one that has like this, like the least amount of plop to it. It's kind of more subtle, and I have found that they will hit that bait and get hooked up as opposed to missing a buzzbait. All right, guys, that's buzzbaits. They are so much fun. They catch big ones. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, comment down below, and I will see you guys tomorrow.